Hi, my name is D.E. Haynes. I'm the president of the Alabama Historical Radio Society. Today we are going to show you how to rewind antique radio speaker field coils. First thing we want to do is to remove the old wire and the old paper coverings. And while I'm doing that, let me mention that you are going to need a micrometer to check the wire gauge. You're going to need a wire chart so that you can take, if say your wire is 8/1000ths of an inch, you can go on the chart and know what size wire you need. And you're going to need a good scale, as well as some hand tools. You'll see several tools that are specially made. You really don't have to have those if you're in a really bind, but we have made several tools that help us to rewind these coils. You'll see them as we use them. And now we're exposing the wire. We've removed all the paper and the stress reliever contacts. We're going to unwind this coil with a special tool. You see that little wooden mandrel we've got there? You have to make one of those that is exactly the right size to fit snugly inside the old coil. We have a special tool here that we've designed for specifically for unwinding these coils. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We find the beginning of the wire on the old spool, fasten it to this special wooden device here, and begin unwinding the coil. And if the coil wire should break at last resort, we'll just cut the wire off with a razor knife, being careful not to cut the spool. Next thing we do is we mic the wire and we weigh it. Now we know what size wire we need, and we know how many ounces of wire we're going to use. Now we're ready to start winding the new coil. We insert the mandrel in the coil spool, slip it on our winding device. Now we're going to start winding the new wire on the old coil form. A lot of the things that you're going to see now are made up of machines that we have built and are designed and built ourselves. So you're not going to have any of this. But we're going to feed the wire through a mechanism that will control the tension of the wire using a clutch and into a mechanism that has a copper tube that will lay the wire on the coil by working backwards and forward. You will be able to see it moving backwards and forwards. And we're going to lay the wire onto the new spool, as well as watch the scale. And when we get to the 5-ounce point on the scale, we will cut off and make a resistance measurement. I'm going to be quiet for a minute or two and let you watch this. All right, the next thing we will do is take a piece of copper wire that's heavier copper wire that we will use as a lead-in. We will trim off the insulation on it for about 1 inch. Lay this wire on the spool, tie it down with tape, and that will be where we fasten the really fine copper wire we're going to wind with. Just a piece of Scotch tape. As you can see, the piece that we bent up, we're going to tin the wire here and solder it to this heavier wire. Next, we cut off the excess wire, press it down, cover it with a piece of Scotch tape, and we will start our winding mechanism. Here's a close-up of the device that lays the wire on the spool by working backwards and forward. Occasionally when we're winding the spool, we will spray enamel on the coil, which will actually act like glue and keep the coil from spreading out or losing its shape. Here we're going to use one of our specially designed tools that one of our members designed to punch holes in this fish paper and put stress reliever contacts. Here you can see the special tool that cuts slots in the fish paper. We will be inserting metal tabs in these slots. The wire will be soldered to those metal tabs. And that becomes the stress reliever for the coil. On the inside, we will put 1 or 2 strips of masking tape to keep the heat from soldering these tabs from destroying or damaging the wire. If you notice, the 2 wires, the beginning, which is the red solid copper wire, and the green, which is the last of the turns, are within about a half an inch of each other. We lay these wires on the contacts. Wrap them around the contacts and then press them down and solder the wires on. To finish the coil, we use gaffer's tape. It looks a lot like duct tape, except it's a much higher quality tape. We tightly wrap the coil. And you can see the contact points as little bulges in the tape. Using an X-Acto knife, we're going to cut out around the soldering points. We cut on 3 sides, leaving the side uncut that has the wire connected to it. Otherwise, we could very easily cut through the wire, which would destroy the coil. One last thing is to add a little more solder, so we have nice, clean solder connections to hook the speaker up. As you can see, we got 950 ohms. That's within the 10% tolerance. Push out the center mandrel, and there we have a finished coil.